From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher. Their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicki Fisher. Our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Skripchuk. And our Batman, the master of tools, gadgets, and all things mechanical, our mild-mannered soon-to-be billionaire, Alan Danvers. Their mission, to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them, and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team.
Welcome to the Garage Heroes in Training Podcast. I'm going to be one of your hosts for this episode, and my name is Bill. Who else is hosting?
I'm Vicki.
Jen.
You are. There's a chance we may have another guest pop in. You never know. We might have a guest. Who knows? But anyway, we have a returning guest. We talked to him on episode 148. He is still the comp school director for NASA Great Lakes. He's been there for 12 years. He's been racing 33 years. He has won many, many, many things. If you want to hear more about it, you can tune into episode 148. He's also a Motorsports Safety Foundation certified instructor. And with all that spare time, he also, in his day job, handles sponsorships. So we found that out, and we said we will have you on in the future. So with that, Brian Bohlander, welcome back to the podcast.
I'm back. Hey guys, thanks for having me back on. Seems like yesterday, wasn't it? Well, anyway, in a continuing of racing world, it probably was yesterday. It was a couple months back. But anyway, it's cold and it's snowy out, so let's talk about something fun and warm and exciting about getting back on the racetrack and going racing, and about how we fund it, right? Isn't that what we want to talk about today?
We do. So this is what we want, Brian. We want to have to do nothing. We want to put a sticker on the side of our car, and we want to get millions of dollars. So how do we get there?
Keep dreaming.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Go back to bed and hope you dream again. Right?
All right. So since that is what most people think happens with IndyCar and NASCAR, and obviously amateur endurance racing or autocross cars, perhaps we should go into a little bit about how the real world is. So what if is there types of sponsorship? Is there several different levels? Is there, like, how does sponsorship in general work?
Okay, so let's start right off at the top, and really let's define, so what exactly is sponsorship, or at least what's the conception of sponsorship? The conception of sponsorship is that it's, you give somebody money to go race, or company gives you money to go race, and you go race. That is the mentality of sponsorship. The reality is it can be any further from the truth. So when a company goes and sponsors you, quote unquote, I'm air quoting sponsorships right now, it's really a transaction where a company is looking for opportunities to grow their business. Some people use it for a media perspective, which I would highly advise against that, and we'll explain that here in a couple of minutes. But really the idea, or at least the misconception in the industry is somebody gives you some money, you throw a logo on the side of a car, and you go race. And that's fine for a one-shot deal, but you'll never be taken seriously. You'll never be able to grow your racing program based on those thoughts. And you're part of the problem that the racing culture has from a perception standpoint with corporate America. And hopefully today I can shed some light on some of those things that will help you change your mindset, and maybe help change that dialogue as well.
All right. From the sponsor side, I mean, what are they looking for, or what are they looking to get back?
Well, that's a great question, Vicki. So let's start from the top. Really, sponsorship is looked at in just three different ways. It really comes down to first of all, how do you help a company grow the business? So what can you do to help that company grow their business? That's the first real pillar to it. Because if you can show that you've helped the company grow their business, you've got a pretty good conversation to continue a partnership or sponsorship. And I'm going to probably interchange the word sponsorship and partnership. And I think maybe for the purpose of this, let's think about this as a mutually beneficial partnership and not a sponsorship.
A transactional relationship.
It is. And when you think sponsorship, you think UNICEF. I'm going to go give a donation to somebody. And that's not what we're doing here. Those days are long gone. The days of, beer and or alcohol and tobacco and, you show up here, you throw some stickers on a car and everybody goes out and buys the product. Those days are over. That's not how this works. And really this accelerated in 2008 when the economy took a tank, and we're living through that now, how it's gone from less of a mechanism to advertise to more of a really business program. So again, the first piece of that is how do you help somebody grow their business? The second piece is, and I'm going to call it influence or influencer based. I won't go so far as calling it media, because there's nothing that frustrates me more than when someone actually gives me a pitch and says, this is a great advertising program. No, it's not. It is one of the worst ways that you can spend money to advertise, because I can find 10 other ways to advertise more effectively, more efficiently for a lot less money. So if you're going to base your racing program on advertising, you've already lost. But I will say that there is a media component to this from the standpoint of, if there's media involved in it, you can tell a compelling story. And one of the things that sponsors look for is being able to tell a compelling story. Advertising is important, but advertising has to be able to be a storytelling mechanism. You've got to say something behind it. Racing is a great way to tell a story, whether it's through personalities, through it's them as ambassadors, through it's their lifestyle. There's something exciting about racing. So it's the storytelling component. And when you build media into that, that could be social media and influence. I mean, look at how many racers have a big following from a social media standpoint. Years ago, it was about TV. Now it's about, if you guys have hundreds of thousands of followers, you're your own media outlet. If you think about Enthusiast publication, the average Enthusiast publication has about 50,000 subscribers. If you have 50 to 100,000 followers on social media, you are a pretty good size media outlet. And the other piece with that, with you being a media outlet, is that you have direct influence. When I say direct influence, the people who follow you genuinely care about what you have to say, and they want to know what you have to say. So that automatically gives you a leg up, rather than just scattershot throwing message points out there. You're talking to an audience who absolutely wants to hear what you have to say and is going to hang on every word that you have to say. So there's that influence component to it. So that's the second piece of it. Then the third piece of sponsorship comes down to, and this is a lot of what we play in the grassroots game, and that is product validation. So whether that's contingency programs, whether that's testing and R&D, product validation is obviously is an important piece of it for, we'll call endemic sponsors that manufacture parts for race cars, or parts for automobiles that can be related to that. So those three components, when you add them all together, really, if you can put all three of these components together, you've got a really solid program. If you have one of those three, you've got a chance of having a program that you can build upon. Something I want to bring up with product sponsorship, because so many people in the grassroots area really heavily rely on the product sponsorship. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with getting free product or getting discount product. I mean, as you know, it costs us a certain amount of money to go race. So anything that you can do to reduce that is a good thing. Where we wind up having challenges is that a lot of people think, well, because you sell to all us racers and that, you should be able to fund our entire race program. And I want everybody to understand that from a product standpoint, free product validation, those are good things, but don't expect a company that's manufacturing products for racing to go fund your racing effort, because there's 10,000 people lined up behind you that are asking the same question. So I don't know if that really answered the full question here, but there's really the three tiers, and we can start break it down and talk about specific examples of those and how to put a program like that together.
Right. Well, I mean, for starters, how would you choose a sponsor, or they come looking for you?
In most cases that I've worked on in 20 years in corporate America, if there's something specific I'm looking for, I go out and find it. 99% of the time, if somebody sends me a proposal, it goes nowhere. A lot of that is because, first of all, is the approach. The approach to sponsorship, I get so many people that will send me the gold, bronze, and silver 3-tiered program. And here's the reality. You have no clue what it is that I'm looking for. So how are you going to sell me something that you don't know what I need? That's the first problem with it. Second piece of that is everybody looks at it from their side and they don't look at it from the bigger picture. Your job as a racer, if you're going to go for sponsorship, is to help a company grow their business. No one asks that question. No one looks at it that way. And no one has that dialogue as to what can I do to help you? You're in the service business. Your job is to help be a provider and provide value to a sponsor or a partner, or whatever you want to define them as. And if you can't do that, then we're kind of dead in the water from a conversation standpoint. So, what I always recommend for first and foremost is really a couple of things here. You start with how can you help somebody grow their business? But even beyond that, you start asking questions, and learn more about the company itself and learn more about what it is they're trying to achieve, because you can't put a program together if you don't have a clue what they're trying to get across and what they're trying to do.
Okay.
Well, what would I guess the other part of that would be, how would the sponsor choose someone, or how would they go about doing that, or is that not something we should worry about?
Well, when you say, let's step back to when you say choose you as a team, or you as a general, you being the industry or the sport itself, because you've got to look at it from this perspective. Sponsors have 1,000 different places they can spend their money. So you almost have to have a champion within the building who understands motorsports and understands its importance. But then even beyond that, the specific form of motorsport they want to go after. Because, in my case, I've worked with pretty much everything. I've worked with everything from F1 to NASCAR to IndyCar to grassroots properties, NHRA. I've done a ton of things with NHRA with many different teams and properties over the years. So for me, it's really about who we're trying to go after. F1 has a specific audience, where IndyCar at its time had a specific audience, and NASCAR has a different audience than NHRA does. So, really the first piece of that is what is the company trying to go after? Once that's identified, then it's how do they best go play in that particular marketplace?
Right.
You're looking for, you want to ask me a question, Bill, so go ahead. I see the wheels turning.
I got lots of wheels. I'm not sure any of them are turning, but we're going to pretend that they are. I'm thinking maybe a lot of people who listen to the podcast maybe aren't familiar with, how a business would look at something as an investment to help them grow their business. So maybe it might be a good idea maybe we should model a potential sponsorship arrangement in some way, just to kind of get them familiar with the pieces.
Boy, I'm glad you asked that. So
that's why I get paid the no bucks.
Let's start with a term I like to call the anchor partner. So when you look at, some people will call it the primary sponsor, the primary partner. I like to call it the anchor partner, because if you build this right, what you're doing is you're building a network and a relationship. So Bill, let's start with you. You're in business. Tell me about the company that you own.
Well, the company that most people think about that's in Pennsylvania, it manufactures various adhesives and sealants and chemical mixtures. However, there was this podcast guest we had back on episode 148 who said you can't make money in racing. So therefore, we started developing products that are aimed at racing that we're going to be testing in our race car or some friends' race cars that will help with thermal management within a racing environment.
Okay, so thermal management. So what you do is you try and reduce heat, and you work with different adhesives. So if you were going to take and grow your business, how would you go about trying to grow your business? Would you go about trying to get people to do product testing and validation? Would you go back to suppliers potentially who could help you maybe develop some new products and or maybe get you a little bit more efficient pricing?
The thought that we were going with this new product line for us was we were doing it for field testing. We've done all the lab testing we can do. It's very expensive and very difficult to do testing. Let's say it's either a direct to metal coating or a coating that goes over like a wrap and protects the wrap as well as increases the thermal management. So getting those tested in a racing environment and heat, temperature, water, whatever, is helpful to us, and getting any feedback on that. And if somebody had data, great, but like it, don't like it, hey, this is a bad color, weird things like that would be of value to us.
I'm going to go a step further from a business building standpoint. So if let's just say this worked out at the end of the day,
sure,
how would you want to distribute this product? How would this product be distributed? Would you sell it direct? Do you have to sell it through shops that have to apply it? How would that work?
I think it would be most of our products are business to business, so we go through a distributor network and perhaps an online offering.
Beautiful. Okay. So if you notice the question sets that I'm asking here, I'm probing around and I'm trying to find out more about your business and what you do and how you do it. Mm-hmm. So you just hit on a couple things here that if I'm looking from a sponsorship standpoint and want to try and help you out, the very first thing I'm going, the light bulb on is dinging going, okay, distributors. So you have a distributor network to move your product. So how can we help you do more within your distributor network? So maybe that's bringing some people out to the events to get them excited about what it is that you're doing and get to see firsthand the product that you're developing. Maybe that's a direction you go. And I say this because if you look at a lot of forms of motorsport, hospitality is a very, very important piece of that and a very key piece of it. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what's going on in the hospitality village right there. That distributor's going out there, you're bringing that customer out there, and you guys are having conversations and using the excitement of the race and excitement of everything that's going on. And even to take it a step further, if the race cars are out there or a team that you're associated with are running the product on the race car, win-win scenario. Now you've got a distributor that's excited about your product. You're probably working out a deal that helps them go sell more product. At the end of the day, when these deals get put together, a lot of times there's money that goes into racing. So maybe your business isn't necessarily funding the racing, but if you get a big enough distributor network together, those distributors all can contribute a little piece of the pie and help grow your racing program. So sure. At the end of the day or the end of the year, when you look at a program like this, did you slap a logo on a car and then expect to go do business? Or can you come back and say, we just brought 10 distributors out here that just brought us XX more revenue this year because of a race program, because they got to see this thing in action. They got to be part of the team and actually got to see the product in use. And if you look at the pro level, that is where most of most of these deals are put together and structured.
Mm-hmm. So pretend that we're approaching this and we're trying to, most of the teams that we race with are families, friends, very much amateur racing. Is there any type of communication that the sponsor is going to be looking for from the team, or is there anything that they're looking to get from the team in a formal or an informal manner, or besides thank you and there's got to be more to it, I would think.
Well, yeah. So I guess let's take a step back of where we are in the process at this point. So, but then the process. You've already made the relationships. You've already got a partner program together, and you're working with someone. So you're asking then, now that basically as we've signed the deal, shall we say, now's when the real work starts. How do we make this thing come to life? There's a term that's thrown around a lot of motorsports called activation, and really it comes down to this: until it's the sales process till you get the deal signed on the dotted line. After you got the deal signed on the dotted line, then it's making it come to life. So if I'm in a position to be able to have partners lined up, what I would do is I'd be communicating to them every race. Here's what happened. This is what we did on the track. Here's what we did off the track. Off the track meaning this is what we've done social media. This is how we mentioned you and talked to you about you. These are some potential people that we bumped into that maybe would be worth introducing you to. You'd mentioned a lot of people, friends and families. The biggest suggestion I can give any racer out there, whether you own a business or not, is somebody in your circle probably does own a business or is close enough for somebody to own a business. Ask them how you can help them start there, and ask them how you can help them grow their business. and see what that looks like. And then just kind of spider web it out to see how you can help them through your racing program get awareness for what they're doing, get context for what they do, and tell a compelling story. Perfect world scenario is if you can help them sell, and then you can build your media following and be able to tell the story, and you can validate a product, you've checked all three of those boxes off. And that's a pretty solid deal when at the end of the year, when you go back and ask, did this work? Well, yeah, it did, because we sold a little bit more. We got more awareness on this, and we got our product validated.
Right.
Sounds like you need somebody that's dedicated to that job versus just running a race team, running parts, it sounds like it's a job in itself.
It really is. It really is, Vicki. And when you look at it at the pro level, most team owners will tell you 85% of their business is to chase, or 85% of their time is to spend chasing new business, i.e. chasing funding. The other 15% of it is leading people and managing people. Because when it comes down to it, as a team owner, your job is to secure the funding, and you put people in place to go run the rest of the operation. And I've been fortunate over the course of my career to work with a lot of different people, and every successful race team is run that exact same way. There's someone who is an owner. Their job is to be the front. They're the lead singer, shall we say? They're the front person, and their job is to go secure funding. And they have a team of people that help them do that. But you don't see them in the back working on race cars, and you don't see them out there telling the team what to do. They hire key people, key engineers, key crew members who run the organization, and their job is to get the funding and then let the people who run the business, run the racing and competition side, do what they do best within that budget. Great examples of this. John Force, I know Force so well in the conversations we've had about Austin Coil for the years. Don't make any bones about it. Force chased the money, and he let Austin Coil do what Austin Coil did their best and put people together and in place and ran that business. Kenny Bernstein, same deal. Kenny's one of the smartest businessmen in the sport, so's Force. I'll tell you Kenny Bernstein's story here in a minute, but Kenny did the same thing. Dale Armstrong was the mastermind. He let Dale do what Dale does best. What Kenny did is chase the money. And I give you a great example of how Kenny put his program together, because it really fits into what we're talking about here. So from the surface, most people would think that a deal 25 years with Budweiser is all about, it's the rolling billboard, right? It's the commercial that goes on the racetrack, right? Well, it couldn't be any further from the truth. You have to understand that Kenny Bernstein came from a background of the restaurant business. That's what he did. He owned several restaurants. He owned a chain. He sold out of his restaurant chain. And just on a whim, went up to St. Louis on a rain out and went to Anheuser-Busch, parked his car in the lot, and he negotiated a deal for a few $1,000s to get started. What Kenny did, and what most other people don't do, is Kenny had the foresight to understand the business side of this. Most people would say it's Budweiser. They got deep pockets. They're going to go spend a bunch of money and advertise, so I might as well be their advertising piece. Kenny, being a former restaurateur, said, look, I understand how the restaurant and the bar business works, and it all works through distribution. And the key is the distributors source all of these locations. So what Kenny did is he made a point to go get to know every one of these distributors around the country. So where Kenny's program came together was not necessarily from corporate, but because he had such great relationships with distributors, and he could go in with distributors and he could sell business because he had a restaurant background. So he knew what to talk, he knew what to say, he knew how it was, and that's how he grew it. And then when it came down to races, they invited their key customers out, they did activities with it. He was always involved, so they always wanted to promote him. They always had racing banners, POS signage that were able to go up on all of their different restaurants and all the different liquor stores. So when it came down to it, every time that Budweiser corporate, Anheuser-Busch, wanted to pull the plug, the distributors would go, absolutely not. Do you understand how much business this guy grows for us? We're not leaving this. That's the classic example of it. What you think on the surface is it's all about an advertising play. It's not at all. It's about growing a business. And if you went to those distributors today, they'll tell you those 25 years, that relationship that they had grew their business significantly. And I obviously can't pinpoint it because everyone was different, but the reality is they all grew their business because of it. And Kenny was the media mastermind. Kenny was always doing PR. Kenny was always writing notes. He was always following up. I've got so many people in the industry who have thank you notes from Kenny Bernstein. If he did anything, he wrote a personalized thank you note. That's what he did. That's how he ran his business. And that is, to the point, Vicki, you asked me, does somebody need to do this? Does somebody's job need to be that? Absolutely. Someone's job needs to be that person. But I think that hopefully gives you a little bit clearer picture of what you see isn't necessarily what you always get. And that what happens behind the scenes is what really drives these sponsorships. And I can go on and on and on about, and I have to obviously hide the names of some of them, but if a major automotive dealer has an insurance company or has a financial company on the side of the race car that has both retail and financing, you think that they're trying to get you to go to a specific bank, but at the end of the day, what if it was a contract that was exclusive for all the financing the vehicles that go through every one of these dealerships was the basis of the sponsorship? They were guaranteed they were getting the financing. Okay. Let's just say we'll use round numbers. If you spend $1 million for sponsorship and get $10 million of business, that's a pretty smart deal, don't you think?
All day long. Where can I spend $2 million, please?
So, and if you look down the boards in all major motorsports, most of those deals, that's how they're structured. Even if they look like they're a retail play, there's some type of a business play in them that's making them successful.
From a racing team or driver side, what can they expect?
So this is kind of an interesting twist because there's lots of different levels in which you can do sponsorship. You can do series sponsorship, you can do a team sponsorship, you can do a driver sponsorship. I think in the road racing world, more so than anything else, I think we see now most of these teams are customer driven, let's call them, which customer driven would mean the drivers are the ones that are bringing the funding to the table to go run them. Let's make no bones about it. That's how pro sports car racing works for the most part, unless it's a factory run program. So from a team standpoint, some of those partnerships are, if you own a team, well, why do you own a team? Do you own it for ego? Do you own it because you have a car dealership and you want to have a certain brand or what have you? It really depends on what their purpose is from an ownership standpoint, what's of value to them. From a driver standpoint, the driver is in that same role of having to bring funding to the table now to get the rides. So what does the driver need to bring to the table to get that ride? Most of it, especially the grassroots and the middle tier, most of this funding is coming from either family sources or coming out of the personal bank account. Because it's kind of that weird situation where if you get to the very bottom of grassroots motorsports, it's very efficient and very inexpensive. When you start to get to the mid-tier and the semi-pro levels, it gets very expensive and there's not a lot of return for it. And then you get to the pro level, then there's some return to it because there's some visibility and there's bigger interest in it where you can tie these bigger deals back together. So from a driver standpoint, what a driver should be looking at is the same idea what we just talked about. Who's the nucleus? Who is that anchor partner that I can go to? Who's the friend that's got a business that I can maybe help them through my racing efforts? If I could get them to bring a couple of people to the table here, and maybe collectively we all work together to help them grow their business, and in turn that then creates the funding that we can go race, and then we can build other activities out at the racetrack to be able to use the racing to talk about the partners, talk about the partnerships that have been put together with all these different companies.
So can you just elaborate more? How would they go about finding a sponsor? Should they aim big or should they aim small? Or
I'm going to use an acronym called ROI, which is return on investment, and it really comes down to what kind of economics. What economics are you looking for? Are you looking for 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, or 10 million? What is the budget?
I have no upper limit.
If you're going to run a regional series, I would advise you think regionally. If you're going to run a national series, think nationally. If you're going to run locally, think locally. There's really no wrong answer in this, and a lot of it really depends on who you're surrounded by and who can you help. If it's a friend who's got a local business, and you're going to race locally, well, that's a great thing. And how can you help them do more locally? If they have more of a regional-based business and you're going to race regionally, how can you help them regionally? And who else can be involved with it? The challenge when you start running regional events and start looking at national sponsors, or local sponsors for that matter. Local only has, one reason for them, because it's their local area. You look at a national level, a national sponsor, if you're only going to run in a couple places, doesn't provide as much value as it does if it's brought over, a bigger area and across a bigger geographic area. So I don't know if I necessarily answered that, but it really just depends on what you're looking for and who you have around you to be able to help.
So are there any better industries to try, such as business to business or consumer, etc.?
Well, I can tell you this, that from an automotive standpoint, because everyone tries automotive and automotive centric sponsors and sponsorships, you're fighting for a lot more attention there than what you would in something that's completely non-related to racing, to motorsports, to automotive. For example, at the pro level, you'll see a lot of technology companies that are involved in it. And I'm not necessarily singling out tech companies, but I'm going to say there's some pros to tech companies. Think about most of them run on pretty wide margins if they're done right. And most of them live in a world that isn't, I won't say exciting, but it's, when you talk about software, is that necessarily, maybe some people are passionate about that, that's fine, but it's not, the whole wowing experience of being around exotic cars and drinking wine and doing all these other great things that some things that motorsports can do. So when you look at sponsors, what you want to look at is companies that you can help them provide value. And again, really doesn't matter the industry, but I would say that if you get around industries that aren't necessarily automotive specific, you probably have a better opportunity if you pitch it right to get some traction, just because it's something different they don't hear about every day, versus in automotive where everybody, this is what we do every day, and you almost get jaded to it because there's 10,000 people pitching you the same thing.
So it doesn't necessarily need to be car or racing related.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Okay. So
I'll give you a great example of that. There's a technology company right now that's involved in one of the major forms of motorsport that through a relationship of somebody that they met decided to get involved in that sport. And in turn, that's turned into a major OEM business for them, just as an example. And who would ever thought a tech company would have got involved in a major form of motorsport? But that's just what they did, because it was something new and unique for them. And the doors that were open for them allowed them to get business that they would never have in a million years had a chance to get without being involved in the sport.
So can you give some tips on how to prepare or present to a potential sponsor?
So what I would suggest if you're going to present to a sponsor is just really to get to know the sponsor first and really gauge the interest and see whether or not they're interested in something like this or not. What you've got to do is really have a conversation with them and get to understand what exactly it is that they're looking for and how you can be a resource to help them. So many times I get the blanketed presentation with the gold, bronze, and silver multi-tier program. And, these are all the great things that we have that with our team. And that's great, but you haven't done anything to really identify how you're going to actually help the sponsor out. All you've done is talked about how great you are, which is nothing wrong with that, and that's important, but you haven't done anything to figure out what it is that can help the business. And so my first recommendation before you send anything, proposal, an overview of what it is just reach out and understand if there's opportunity and really get to understand what it is that the business is trying to do and how you can use your racing program to help that business that you're going after to put things together. So it takes a little bit of creativity to come up with ideas for the sponsor pitch of what you think, where you think you can help them and understand what they're looking for. And then at that point when you can go back and put together a presentation, tell them a little bit about who you are, and then really fine tune exactly how you think you can help them solve the issue that they have through your racing program.
We're trying to figure out what the it's kind of a vague situation in that if the business goes up, we may or may not be related to anything that we've done, or if the business goes down, it may be it wouldn't have gone down as much. I mean, it would have gone down more without all the great work that we did. So I'm trying to figure out, what do we give the sponsor to show value, I guess.
Well, and it really comes down to what was negotiated and what was discussed up front. Are they looking for what's the value to them? Is the value being able to validate a product? If you can give them reports that show that it did what you set out to do, that's one way that it could be beneficial to them. From a media standpoint, because again, you essentially are a media outlet with some influence. Talk about what you've done to promote them. How have you talked about them? How have you been able to share information about them? How big is the audience? How many people saw it? With social media, you can pull a lot of these metrics right away. And then from a business standpoint, hey, you go to the racetrack, and even if you have a hospitality program set up, your job is to facilitate getting people together. You can't make prospect A and B buy from your sponsor. You just can't do that. You can't strong arm them into doing it. But you can show the fact that, look, we had this event, we had these people out here, this is who attended, and we stopped by and we told them all the pros of the widget that we tested, and what did you guys do? Did you close the deal or not? We put it all right there for you on a silver platter. We've done everything we can do to help you. If we're missing something, tell me what else do we need to do? Do we need to pick up a phone and call somebody and tell them how good this is and do any type of follow-up? And it's really just, the reporting is to tell what you're doing and how you're making this thing come to life. Because even if you provide something to a sponsor, you're ahead of so many other people in this deal who put a sticker on a car and then they disappear until September and October, and then they ask you for more money and they wonder why they don't get anything because they haven't been in touch with you all year long. So just by being involved and just providing them information and trying to do everything you can to help them with their business, that's all you can ask.
Okay. You don't want to be a black hole that they send checks into, right?
You won't last long if you are.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe, I think we've talked about things in a very high level, kind of a little bit cloudy. Maybe we could firm things up a little bit. So let's pretend that we had a grassroots racing team and they were looking for sponsorship. Perhaps they do endurance racing and they have a podcast, and they want to get sponsors from, let's say, a local tire shop and 7-Eleven for their Slurpees. Okay, because we like our Slurpees. Is there anything that a regular team could offer to either, I'm trying to think of a small local automotive and then a larger regional or national brand? Is there anything that would be attractive or anything that would be offering that would be appealing to someone like that? Or am I trying to be too, I don't know, specific, I guess?
So let's start with the easiest thing of this and say, okay, what is your budget for Slurpees that you're looking for? Are you looking for just free Slurpees, or are you looking for something bigger?
I like my Slurpees.
If you want free Slurpees, the first thing that I would suggest for a team like that would be going to your local. See, if you want 7-Eleven, go to your local 7-Eleven. It's probably owned by a franchisee. Find out who that franchisee is. If you know that franchisee, you're even that much further ahead. But if you don't, talk about what you could do in return for them and ask them what would help them. Would bringing a car out to 7-Eleven at some point actually help them? Maybe you hand out coupons for something specific, a specific product that they would have.
Drive some traffic.
That would be an option. Maybe you get asking for gift cards. If you're looking for a couple $100 worth of gift cards, maybe it's enough where they write it off and say, I'll bring a car out. Maybe we'll just be here. We'll put a picture up somewhere in your establishment there of what we do and who we are. And maybe it's something as simple as that. But again, that would be where I'd start. I would find the franchisee, find out how you can help them. And if you're looking for something as nominal as that, a lot of times they'll be like, great, fine, just, what have you, here you go. From a tire shop, let's look at the tire shop standpoint. Are you looking for services? Are you looking for products? I mean, what are you ultimately looking for out of the tire shop?
I don't know. Maybe some assistance, some mechanical, or maybe just mounting and balancing type operation, alignment, maybe every now and then. Not that we ever hit a curb, Brian. We don't hit curbs.
Okay, so again, I would say I'd probably take a very similar model of that because of the size and the scope of what you're doing. Yeah, again, if you can get them to provide services either to discount or maybe couponing, things like that, would be an approach. Bring out the car to the store on a Saturday at some point when you guys aren't racing, and a lot of times they'll have tire promotions and sales. And how can you help them with their tire sales? Because can you help them get the word out through your team, through social media? Can you say, hey, on this day, go to this particular location and say big on tires and whatever that is? Or maybe there's a code, GHIT is the code if you come in here that you save, I don't know, 10, 15% on it. Those are great things because then they can actually track and see what kind of return they got on that investment. A lot of times for programs like that, if you can trade out service is usually the easiest way for a company like that to work off of, because service is a physical thing. Yes, they have to pay somebody to do this, but it isn't as much of a pain from a bookkeeping standpoint as what it is a physical product. So sometimes you can barter out services. You can barter it out either as a no charge, you can barter it out at cost. I mean, there's ways to look at it. So again, it goes back to, these are things that I would start to, from a suggestion standpoint, but who knows? Maybe the owner of the place loves racing and maybe they want to help and they want to get involved. Maybe they want to be a team member. Maybe they want to have, maybe there's somebody within their shop that wants to go to races and help crew on a car at some point. And maybe there's a way that you could do
GarageHarrisonTraining@gmail.com if anybody out there wants to come and help fix a car, because we can break them really well, but we need help on the fixing side.
So Bill, I'm kind of shooting in the dark here because again, I don't know what that business owner is looking for. But I mean, these are suggestions. If I were to go in and start asking questions, these would be things that I would ask to try and find out if these would be of value to them. And maybe they'll come out and tell you something completely different. And if you can provide that to them, then you've got a mutually beneficial partnership.
And then let's just do one for the peanut gallery, who I have a vested interest in keeping happy. If somebody wanted to get sponsored by, let's just say, something that rhymes with flying Miata, for her Miata that she can't stop turning screws on and bolts on, is there any reason, or it seems like an intermediate sized company, definitely racing or automotive focused, but is there anything that we could offer them, because they've got a much better name, well-known name in the Miata community than most of the amateur racing teams that we're aware of? So it seems like a very tall, vertically challenged uphill endeavor to try and see if they were interested in sponsoring, even if she just wanted a t-shirt.
Okay, so again, let's go back to, what are you looking for? Are you looking for apparel? Are you looking for services? Are you wanting to drive one of their cars? What are you trying to achieve? Let's start there.
Well, I think Vicki would love to be able to upgrade her car at some point in the future, whatever that may be. I don't know what her next upgrade would be. She seems to have everything done, but I'm sure she'll come up with something new or break something old. So let's say with assistance with racing supplies.
So in a situation like that, because I'm sure that a company like that has every single person that runs a Miata that is banging on their door asking the same question.
Exactly.
So what is it that you guys provide that other people don't? What is something that you could provide them that other people couldn't?
A very motivated and enthusiastic listenership of very few numbers who like self-deprecating humor in teams that are trying real hard and not succeeding very well.
Okay.
Not much.
So I guess here would be my suggestion. You have a podcast that we're on and we're talking about right now. Have
We
you had
do.
him on as guest?
We have.
Okay. And how was it received? How did they receive the show, and how was it received to your audience?
It was actually one of our better listened to podcasts, and it I think every feedback we got from everybody that listened to it liked it, and you know, so far so good. We definitely haven't done everything we possibly could to foster the relationship besides placing a lot of purchase orders, but that's a different story.
Well, to me, that'd be where I'd start. I'd leverage what you have, what's your asset. Your asset right now is the podcast, so leverage it. Whether it's incorporating them in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it's a segment on the show. Maybe it's something along those lines.
Mhm.
And in a program like that, where it's a medium, mid-sized company, I'm sure they're not going to give away the farm, but
No.
maybe you can work out a deal where there's a discount. Maybe it's a discount code at the end of the day.
Sure.
Here's how a lot of these deals work out. Maybe it's a segment where that you provide a segment on the show and you provide a discount code, and if people use it, what they do when that discount code comes back to you at the end of the day. And a lot of these deals are set up that way, especially in a product deal where if there's a 10% discount code, well, that 10% to the audience actually in some way goes back to you guys, so that there's incentive for people to buy product based on you guys' influence. So that's a good way for them to sponsor, and it doesn't really cost them a lot, because at the end of the day they're still making money on what they sell. So they got to give a little bit of it and give it a little bit back to you guys to get a discount. They can at least track it, and again, it helps you guys out. I mean, it's not thousands of dollars to go race.
No.
But if it's a few bucks here and a few bucks there, and you can do enough of it, it starts adding up when it's all said and done.
Absolutely. And just to be clear, we have made $0, 0 cents, but we do pay a lot to host our podcast, but we're working on it. We'd be happy to break even. So did we miss anything, Brian? Is there more that we should get into? It's kind of a nebulous topic was the word I was trying to look for before. And it's very relationship based, and it's very each
fluid.
Specific relationship requires different strategies and different approaches, and sometimes it's hard to it's kind of like asking a race car driver, what do you do well? Most of them don't have a really good answer. What do you do poorly? Oh, I do this and this and this, and oh my god, I can't do this. It's hard to value what a team or a racer or somebody like us has that would be of value to them, and just as much it's often difficult to quantify that and put it in some type of coherent sentence, as I just proved for the past minute.
Yeah, well, and that really is it. It's not a one size fits all. It's not an easy equation. There's a lot of variables to it. What it's not is a one size fits all. And that is, I think, the biggest, if there's one takeaway I want everybody to understand, is it's not one size fits all. You don't send 100 proposals out to different companies offering them the exact same thing, because one, you're wasting your time and energy because nobody's going to look at it. And two, if you can't establish value, no one's going to look at it. And the third piece of it is you don't even know how you can establish value because you haven't asked any leading questions to understand where the value comes into play. So those are really
Bill.
Sorry, I've asked a lot of questions today. Thank you.
No, you have. You've asked some good ones too. But I'm just saying, from the average person who goes after and hunts sponsorship, that's what they do. That's the way they've gone about it. And then they get frustrated, and after a while they give up because nobody responds to it. I would say, if I was going to give advice, I'd say pick 2 or 3 companies that you want to go after. What I would primarily do is go find somebody that to start with who has a business, and ask them how you can help them, and then use that as kind of your center point, because at least you have a conversation starter. Hey, I'm so-and-so at XYZ company, and I work with this person, or I know this person, and I'm trying to help them. This is what I think they could provide to you. That's where you start these conversations.
So start with your personal network. Don't necessarily start with your dream. Oh, I'd love to be sponsored by,
Exactly.
STP like Richard Petty, or,
Because
whatever.
until you get to a point where you've gone far enough up to scale, and you have enough different partners that can help make those introductions, it's almost impossible. And I hate to say that from the negative, but it's almost impossible to make those things come to life just out of a hope and a dream. You've got to have something really compelling to get somebody to stop and take a look at it. And that's just what it comes down to. And if you look at most professional motorsports at this point, it's, again, they're leveraging, people are leveraging businesses they have. Team owners are leveraging businesses they have, and that's how they're putting these programs together. Or they meet people who know other people who bring things to the table, and they bring a network of other people together.
Mm-hmm.
In the industry, you have this common term called a sponsor sum, and that's exactly what it is. A team brings in everybody from the glove manufacturer to the OEM manufacturer to the retailer to you name it in between, and everybody gets together in a room and they talk about what they do and see if there's anything they can do to help each other out. I mean,
Sure.
you never know when a glove promotion can come together at a retail outlet, because that's happened. I've seen them happen, and it all happens through these sponsor summits where people get in a room and they talk about what everybody's objectives are and how they can help each other. And that race team is the group that facilitated that discussion, and or sanctioning body or series or what have you. I've been to many of them, and that's what it is. And the more of those that you can, the more opportunities you have of getting people in a room to have those conversations, the better chance there is of something to come out of it that's positive. And at the end of the year, when the partners are looking whether or not they're going to renew or not, they're happy to renew when they've got multiple programs that have come together through the relationships they've made through that team.
Sure. And then I guess on an individual basis or a team basis, you have to realize that the sponsorship does not come without a price tag in terms of effort and time, and you have to figure out whether or not that investment on your part is worth the payback from the sponsorship as well.
Yeah, exactly. And when you get to the grassroots level, when you look at it, sometimes you're better off to start a side business or go out there and do a side hustle or work part-time at a job and take the money and the proceeds for that to put into your racing effort than it is to go chase the sponsorship piece of it. I mean, you can always be looking for, you can always be out asking the questions and always be trying to uncover those stones, because you never know when you're going to find the places you least expected or where you're going to find it. But I mean, if it comes down to getting experience and getting out on the track, you're better off to take and allocate your funds and your time to get in track time at first, and get started and get experience and start to build the skill set on the track that way, while you're developing the off the track skill set that it takes to put these business deals together to progress.
Right. And if you're doing racing as a hobby, which I think most of us are doing, a lot of times, converting the racing into a racing hobby with a job trying to fund the racing is less fruitful than just focusing on your job or focusing on some other thing and keeping racing as a fun activity as opposed to a work activity.
Yeah, because remember, the first time that you bring a company in, the company has expectations. So it now becomes another piece of what you do when you're at the racetrack. It's not just, going to have fun. At that point, it's, you have to provide value. So whatever that value is, whether it's, performance on track for product validation, or whether it's, getting people out to the racetrack and having them sharing what you do to get them excited about buying whatever that product is that you're trying to help people sell and help trying to build relationships around.
Right. Well, I mean, it's nothing new for us to have expectations bashed amongst the rocks of a race. So we've done that before. We can do it again. But we have a great time doing it, and we get to joke around.
I don't want to be the bad guy here, and
No.
I don't want. And again, not trying to be the bad guy about it, but I mean, these are just things that over 20 years in corporate America I've learned. I can tell you this: if you have a morsel, meaning if you got a little opportunity with somebody, and you can convince them, even if it's a couple bucks off on product, put a big sticker on the side of the car, make it seem bigger than what it is, because you never know when that can turn into something bigger. We used the Bernstein example to begin with. Kenny's deal was really pennies in the big scheme of things, and it was, several $1 million at the end of it, because he did it one piece at a time, one step at a time. Your case before, maybe it's putting a big sticker on the car from that particular company, and again, as you continue to do more for them, over deliver, under promise and over deliver. Provide them
pause.
so
Yeah.
much, provide them so much value that they can't say no to you.
Well, I've only succeeded in that once, and that was with Miss Vicki.
It sounds like a job. I mean, both of it. No,
I sound like a job.
no. Like I said before, I think it really amps up the stress level unless you are a particular kind of person who is highly extroverted. But if you're not an extroverted person, it sounds daunting, if that makes any sense, even for the racer, because of those expectations. Now it's not just racing for fun, it's racing and then the work after it besides your other job. So,
Yeah.
so that is something also to, I keep in mind. I think, I mentioned this on before we got onto the podcast that once people, if that is not a fit for them, the stress level to racing ceases to make racing fun. But
it's not free money.
It's not free money.
It's not free money.
No.
That's 100% on. It's not free money.
Mm-hmm. So that is the alternative to the argument of sponsorship.
Yeah, and again, I think in the world that we play, if you're looking for a way to generate revenue, the endurance racing deal is the way to do it, and rent out part of the seats to those who are willing to pay for the experience. It's significantly, I won't say easier, because you've got to have a lot of things in place to do it, but from a business model standpoint, it's a much more straightforward business model than chasing funding to put the program together and run the program. Not saying it can't be done, but there's a lot of steps and a lot of legwork to do that. And here's the other thing: if you bring a funded driver in, most of the time those funded drivers may have some of those contacts and relationships, and it becomes a great building block for you with them. If you can help them succeed through what you do and through other relationships, now you're playing matchmaker and you're not having to chase it. You're facilitating, you're creating an environment that breeds it rather than having to go out and hunt it down.
Right.
True. Just don't let them use your race truck that has a fifth gear that's made of glass.
Oh my God.
That's not the way to go.
This race truck. It's okay. I'm fixing it.
We are. Not for the 18th time.
Yeah.
So, Brian, did we miss anything important that we didn't go into in depth yet, or?
Well, now I feel like the bad guy and I've smashed everybody's dreams about sponsorship.
No, not at all. No. I honestly, I think podcast, it's not going to pay for racing. It might pay for itself, but I think if anything, sponsorship and usage of the podcast is a great way to network within the communities, which is what I'm finding, and having more people on and working towards sponsorship, which, as things start to progress, as we start to grow with this, is a way of doing it. And then, just local guys that, that we get business also if we can advertise on our car type of thing. But our dreams at our level, we're not going to have people pay for our cars. To be honest, they're just not.
You break too much.
Well, and I'm going to back
We
up
break too much. Personally.
I want to back up to what you just said here, because I want to change the perception of this. I know you said advertise in the car. What I want to change the thinking of this is not an advertising on the car, but even those people who, let's call them angel investors, who do have companies who just want to see you guys succeed and want to put logos on a car. At the end of the day, what else can you do to help them out? Maybe you throw them something within the podcast. Maybe you go bring a car out and do a display. Maybe you introduce them to other people that can help them out. So even though they've some of these, in a lot of times at the grassroots level, most of these sponsors aren't looking for a ton in return. They're friends of friends of friends who just want to see their name on the side of a car. But that's not going to get you where you need to go if you want to go further in this sport. You got to have bigger money, and you've got to think about it from a business standpoint of how do you help
Well,
somebody with a business and grow that business.
right. Like you said, I mean, how can I help you?
Yeah, it's exactly
You
it.
know,
We,
what do you need from me that I can help you?
we,
And that might just be also just like, hey, you know, I got a whole crew here. You have cars, you know, can we, you know, go out for track days? You know, can you
yes.
just bring everything for track days for this entire crew of people that I have? Well, absolutely. We can go ahead and we can, you know, go ahead and teach your crew how to drive, you know, that
Yes.
kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great way to go look at this.
Hmm.
Had a friend of mine talk about how he paid for his tire bill for a year by charging people $200 a seat to go do ride-alongs with them
Hmm.
at HPD days. I never
Right.
thought about that. I'm like, that's brilliant.
Hmm.
You're whetting somebody's appetite for the sport. Maybe you're getting people that are excited about being in the sport who've never been part of it, and you're getting a little bit of money to offset your expenses to do this. And again, I think when people start thinking about sponsorship and talk about sponsorship, they have the big idea of we're going to get thousands and tens of thousands
Yeah.
of dollars to go do this. And we have to change the dialogue of this. It isn't about how much we get; it's how much do we actually have to spend to do it. We can go to the
Hmm.
racetrack even. We've won. We have a hobby, and
For sure.
we can have fun at this, right?
Hmm.
So again, how do you knock the expenses off? How do you knock the tire bill off? How do you knock down the entry fees? How do you knock off some of the logistics costs? How do you knock down some of the fuel costs between the race
Hmm.
car and the tow vehicle? You
Hmm.
know, if it costs X amount of dollars every time that you can take some of that chunk off through help, through product, through things like that, that's just as good as somebody writing you a blank check to go out there and do this.
Hmm.
Yep. If we could just dig the hole a little slower.
That's it. That's it.
So
It is
if
good.
ExxonMobil wants to sponsor us for our tow vehicle gas supplies, we're more than willing. Just come see us, and we will figure out some way. And I think it's going to be something we work on this year. Perhaps we'll see if we're successful, Brian.
There you go.
Thank
I
you.
think
sir.
I think it would be really fun. I mean, just to end on it, um, racing an electric car. I mean, not an R level, but obviously, I mean,
How did you get there?
well, I mean,
We just wandered off into electric land.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about like the sponsorships of people that have electric cars, and this is just on the bigger end. You know, it's just getting electric. I know it's very, very early into an endurance race. I mean, how odd would that be?
Jay has. Go ahead, Brian.
It would be interesting, and I'm sure there's a considerable amount of expense and R&D that would have to go into it. But I would agree with you that something novel like that is more apt to get people's attention than the same old same old.
Mm-hmm.
So where you're thinking, Vicki, is really thinking about how can we do something that's so unique that we get awareness, so we're just not another one of the 80, 90 cars that show up. We have something
Mm-hmm.
really unique to offer to somebody. And that's
Mm-hmm.
how you got to think about it, whether it's electrification or whether it's something else. Maybe it's a certain maker model or a certain tire manufacturer or what have you. The obscure always gets attention, and attention most of the time is a good thing when you're looking
Mm-hmm.
at trying to help partners out and get some recognition and be known for something.
Mm-hmm.
That would be fun. I don't
It
know that
would
we
be
have a long
fun.
enough electric cord to go around the track, but we'll see what we can do. Might get tangled up.
That would be funny. I know there's a lot of logistics into it, but I mean, just even if you're not there to win, just entering an electric car into one, that would be kind of odd.
There's been a couple.
Yeah.
Jay Lamb sponsors a $1 million nickel prize for the first car that can win a Lemons race that's electric.
Wow.
It's only $50,000, but I mean, $50,000 is $50,000.
Yeah.
I don't know. Brian's brain seems to be looking now. He's like,
I've always said that for me, teaching comp school, the best thing in the world would be an electric vehicle because all I had to do is come in off the racetrack, plug it back in, and go back to the classroom. You
Oh my
wouldn't have to worry about
gosh.
anything. And then when I'm done, you unplug it, strap in, and go out there and drive you guys crazy on the racetrack while we're on doing our drills.
It's
I
funny.
always think that driving the electric car on the track would be difficult because you don't have that sonic component. Like you can't tell, you know.
Yes and no. I mean, nowadays with the gearboxes they have on them, you can hear gear whine. That's your sonic component of it. But the other thing is too is speed. I mean, the sensation of speed. When you've driven enough different things, you can almost turn the auditory piece out, and you
A
can
leaf in the wind.
you can drive it off your senses. You just take one of the senses out. That's all, and
Mhm.
you still can sense the speed. You can still sense the vibrations and sense the gears and all of that, and kind of know where you are.
I guess I just never tried it. We'll give it a run.
Yeah.
I know I can tip a golf cart over on a golf course, so I have a feeling I might do the same thing on the track. All right. That's our electric segue. Brian, thank you. It was great having
Thank
you
you,
on again.
Brian.
Thank you
Thank
guys. I
you.
really appreciate the opportunity, and hopefully we've helped the grassroots community out and in some positive ways out here. But keep your head up. I think there's opportunities, and I will say this is how I'm going to end it on the positive. One of the things that happened with COVID last year is the major motorsports lost the fans in the stands. And what's the difference between major motorsports and grassroots motorsports when there's no fans in the grandstands? Anybody want to take a stab at it?
They go a little faster, but not a lot.
Lots of zeros at the end of it. So from a corporate standpoint, if you're trying to tell an authentic story about motorsports, and I can spend X or Y if Y is significantly less than X, and I can still sell a pretty compelling story, I kind of start thinking about leaning that way. And I'm saying that because I talk to a lot of my counterparts in the industry, and there's kind of this buzz going around with us. So saying, should we really be spending all this money over here? Well, maybe we should be spending a little bit more over here and can kind of do the same thing. So don't get me wrong, there's still value in pro racing. So I'm not saying that in any way, shape, or form to bag on that, because there's a ton of value still there. But I think the pendulum started to swing back in the grassroots favor in some capacity, which is good for our audience here. That maybe what wasn't necessarily on the radar screen a couple of years ago, maybe back on the radar screen, and you may see some more companies get involved at this level because they do see the value to it, to be able to tell a product story and a compelling product story for significantly less investment.
Exactly. It's kind of the difference between a rifle shot and a shotgun shot, right?
Yeah.
That expensive rifle bullet, or do you just kind of blast the whole area?
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like fun. Sounds like we've got some work to do, people.
Yep.
I want one free Slurpee this year. That's what I want. That's our goal. Starting with one free Slurpee. We'll even take a Wawa one if we have to, but we want Slurpee brand. Thank you,
Sure.
Brian. We'll see
Thank
you
you,
at
Brian.
NASA Great Lakes soon, I hope.
We'll be there. Looking forward to it. See you guys in a couple of months.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Thank you, sir.
excited.
Thank you.
Have a great
Bye.
night.
Thanks, you guys do.
All right, Brian, anything you need from us or good?
Blood for punishment. Let's roll. Let's do this.
Well, you got to look at it this way. You're going to get overdosed with me this summer because I go to every single one that's not a race weekend, all the NASA Great Lakes. So you're going to meet in person at some point. So we'll get there.
We are. NCM will meet if you're going to be there because I'll be teaching comp school right out of the gate.
Ooh, well, I am not ready for your comp school yet, in my mind. But
I love that program, by the way. It's such a great program up there. I mean, it's so worth a trip for us.
Cool,
it is good.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that all these years and energy have paid off.
Well, let's put it this way. My average commute time to a NASA Great Lakes event is over 10 hours one way.
Mm-hmm.
And we still do it. Rock and roll.
On that note.
Okay.
No problem. We're done sucking up to you, Brian. That's it. Now it's time for hard-hitting journalism. I doubt it, but we'll see. All right. You done yawning, Vic?
Boy, I tell you, it was a tough weekend.
Okay.
I'm recovering.
Is that a yes?
Yes, I'm ready. I'm ready. Ready.
I'm about to start the podcast.
Plowing through is what I'm doing.
All right. Very well. Suck it up, woman.